All Indiana Politics is your premier source for Indiana politics, focusing on issues that matter to you.
I still want us to be the best in the Midwest.
We can't afford another lockdown.
Give the citizens of this country the relief they need.
Education in the state of Indiana remains priority number one.
In-depth, nonpartisan coverage.
We don't know exactly where the economy will be in January.
People are worried with good reason.
Exclusive interviews with Indiana's political leaders.
We have the resources here in the state of Indiana to care for those who are in need.
Expert analysis on critical legislation.
We need to reform those laws.
This recovery is going to take some time.
We've got to anticipate that there'll be a budget shortfall.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network.
Good Sunday morning. Welcome to another edition of All Indiana Politics. I'm Phil Sanchez. Governor Eric Holcomb will end his time in office in 1 month. He reflects on his 8 years in office with News 8's Tim Spears.
What do you think your legacy will be?
I think people will reflectively look back on this 8 years and hopefully see it as a time of significant growth in terms of economic development, which is paramount in the sense that that helps you fund everything else you do. If your economy's not growing, it makes everything else harder. I hope people look back and think, you know, we grew a lot together as families, communities, as a state, regions, and we were able to do things that we talked about for years. Finish I-69, double track the South Shoreline, bring in multiple billion-dollar investments.
And so much of that happened after the pandemic. How do you feel like you handled it?
The pandemic?
Yes.
Well, it wasn't just but you're asking me, so it was we. This was a global pandemic of which no one alive was aware of the impact in 1918. And for sure didn't have social media forces at work and play, spreading mis and disinformation, and the facts on the ground changing from very credible, trusted sources. And so for us, I give us really high marks in terms of understanding that we weren't going to please everyone. Anytime you ask someone to take into consideration changes in their individual liberties, you're not going to get 100% agreement on anything.
With the benefit of hindsight, do you think the state should have responded differently at all during the pandemic?
Well, what do they say? Hindsight's 20/20. I mean, you could spend the rest of your days second guessing, but when you're in the pocket and you're getting rushed, you rely on your team. Everyone had to pitch in, and I'm just proud of what they did. And I won't second guess decisions that we made. Were they all right? Probably not. Were they all wrong? No. We were seen as a model in so many different respects, and I'm proud of each and every person that came to work every single day, didn't sleep for many days, and was undeterred.
Do you have any regrets from your time in office?
I'm not a guy that, I don't want to start singing Frank Sinatra. Regrets, I've had a few, but too few to mention, but I'm not a person that regrets. I try to learn from any disappointment I may have had. I'm disappointed in a number of things. We didn't, mostly revolving around progress we didn't make, or enough progress we didn't make. We've improved our infant mortality rates, but not enough. And that's haunting or maddening to me. So regret's probably too strong of a word.
With some of the more controversial pieces of legislation that came through during your time, specifically with abortion and transgender health care, a lot of that was built on strongly held moral beliefs by the lawmakers who passed them through and their constituents.
Sure.
Do you ever worry, though, that history will look on that unfavorably?
This is where the people's work is done. And it's very reflective of what's going on in the world at the time. And I'm very aware that the pendulum in society swings and issues ebb and flow. And so I would say don't be surprised by it or be worried by it. If you're here, it's part of your job.
Your administration has taken steps to protect the unborn. but at the same time in recent months has taken steps to enforce the death penalty. Why is that?
Speaking for myself, my administration, it's a difference of one very important word: innocent. And we will seek to protect at every turn innocent life. There is also something called justice, in that applies to people who are convicted and sentenced in Indiana according to the law to death. But until the law's changed, I'll enforce them as they are on the books.
Well, and I feel like this moment in history is a little bit different than maybe it would have been 30 years ago in terms of enforcing the death penalty, because of how difficult it is to get the cocktail, essentially to put the prisoner to death. Was it a deliberate choice by you?
Definitely a deliberate choice by me to carry out the duties of my office while I'm here. I subscribe to the notion of capital punishment. I don't want to make any mistake here. But had I not, it would still be part of my job to make sure that the state of Indiana could carry out executions.
What advice are you giving the governor-elect?
To stay humble and hungry. You have to remain humble in the sense that you're going to learn every day. You're going to learn on your first day, and you're certainly going to learn on your last day from the Hoosiers that make up this state, what their desires are, what their challenges are, and to be able to build a team, cast a vision, and then start implementing and executing on the plan of the day. Where you come up short, tweak it, pivot, but keep moving forward. And you'll do that, you'll go a lot further, a lot faster if you do it with a lot of other people.
What's next for you?
Spending time with my wife, about at least 2 months. She mentioned to me that the last 8 years has been about my schedule. The next 2 months will be about our schedule. And I'm longing for that as well. Look forward to that. But I want to help an organization or a company or companies grow in a world-class, cutting-edge, technologically driven way.
Do you think that will be in the private sector?
Could be. Any way that I can help, that I can wake up with the same excitement and adrenaline every day about achieving goals and measure the progress, that will be enticing to me, whether it's here around the country or around the world. I'm going to do this job to the last hour of the last day, and then proudly leave a cupboard full, a pipeline full for my successor, and then move on to the next opportunity or challenge.
Governor Holcomb, thank you for doing this.
Coming up, Indiana's next governor says farewell to the Senate, what he says he accomplished during his time in Congress. Mike Braun has said his official goodbye to the U.S. Senate as he prepares to move to the Indiana State House. Braun highlights his accomplishments in a speech on the Senate floor.
In the honor of my lifetime to represent Hoosiers here in the U.S. Senate. When I said I was going to do this back in 2017, didn't have much of a political legacy, to leave my business that I had spent 37 years running, and that I wanted to run for the U.S. Senate. Everybody said, fool's errand, couldn't be done. But there were a lot of Hoosiers wanting the system to be shaken up a little bit. And when I interpreted, I think, what politics was doing back in 15 and 16, I crafted that unusual idea that it could be done even when you've made most of your life in the trenches in the real world. I was told when I got here, freshman senators are not to be heard, maybe seen, sit back, learn the ropes. Well, that wasn't going to work for me because I had already put myself into a corner because I said I wouldn't do it more than 2 terms. That's unusual. Everyone says it. They get amnesia, and then you know the rest of the story. 2021, freshman Senate office gets more bills across the finish line than any other. It's amazing. 37 in the span of 6 years. Again, that's why the Center for Effective Lawmaking singled out our office as being most impactful in areas like healthcare, education, and agriculture. All stuff I bumped into in so many ways in the real world before I got here. Veterans. That's an issue in many different ways. Those that serve our country still have trouble getting basic benefits, especially as it relates here in the federal government where most of them come from. They told us back home in Indiana that to get claims information through the mail or driving to a regional location was clumsy, even through the mail, logistically impossible when you had to travel sometimes 2 hours to get basic checkup. That was a real burden for disabled veterans. We wrote the Wounded Warriors Access Act to streamline the claims process with an online tool signed into law last year. Here, being on health, education, labor, and pensions, I told the chair of that committee, Senator Sanders, if you want to lower health care costs, start incentivizing the industry to be competitive and transparent. Well, that ended up creating what would be the most transformational bill called the Healthcare Price Transparency Act. And when you're getting someone like Senator Bernie Sanders and Mike Braun, the two loudest voices in the Senate on health care reform, that's a modern miracle. And that bill is there as a template, already strongly bipartisan. Some of the features of it could be dropped into reforms that we do even this year. In the real world, you got to live within your means. Borrowing money from our kids and grandkids is not a business plan that's going to work. How do we turn things around? The best thing, we are not flying blind here. There's an instruction manual. It's called the Constitution, especially the 10th Amendment. As the federal government has struggled, the states have been a laboratory for how you fix things. That's where the innovation is going to come from in the next decade. And I'm so excited to lead that charge back home in Indiana. It was so hard to get here in the first place. The question I get asked most, why wouldn't you stay? Well, I kind of explained that a little bit earlier, that I believe in term limits, and it was an either-or choice. Either run for governor or serve another term here. I'm not going to lose sight of what I've been a part of.
All right, coming up, Indiana's best political team debates Governor Holcomb's legacy. Welcome back to All Indiana Politics as we welcome in two members of Indiana's best political team, Republican Tom John and Democrat Kip Tu. Gentlemen, we've had a lot of discussion about legacy so far in this show, so let's add you to that conversation. Let's talk about Governor Eric Holcomb. Tom, I want to start with you this week. For you, what is the legacy of Eric Holcomb, and what are the high points for you over the past 8 years?
Well, I think what you've seen is steady government towards improving the lives of Hoosiers and the state of our state. You've seen in his time $150 billion $154 billion in invested growth in our GDP. You've seen him reduce the debt of the state. You've seen him invest in important things like Ready Grants, which the state's investment has led to $22 billion of investment in our communities throughout our state. You've seen him invest in mental health. You've seen a reduction in opioid deaths. So he's been working to really practically make Hoosiers' lives better. I think that'll be his legacy. Obviously, the other piece is having navigated COVID in, I think, a thoughtful and deliberate manner.
Kip, is there a high point for you?
I agree with Tom. I thought this governor, I think his best legacy is navigating COVID. I think that he did it better than most red state governors, and probably as well as a lot of blue state. I think, in his comments said he didn't get everything perfect, but nobody knew how to handle this because it never happened before. So right. I give him very high marks for how he handled that crisis, and it was leadership that we needed at the time, and he really did provide it. On the downside, I would say, as a Democrat and a person who believes that women should have the same rights I have, I really have to knock him for signing the bill that outlawed abortion in the state of Indiana in almost all cases. I think it made Indiana women second-class citizens, and it's a big mark, but it is a legacy.
Tom, low points for you over 8 years?
No, I mean, the high points, like I said, it's been the great work. No, I don't think they're low points. I think you've seen somebody who, at the end of the day, he walks out the door, and Kip and I'll disagree on his choices on legislation. But the fact is, you saw somebody who really took Hoosiers first and made the best for our state. And the state's better for having him there, and he's somebody you always knew and trusted his integrity there.
Let me ask it this way, gentlemen. Where does Eric Holcomb rank among past Indiana governors, and specifically when you talk about the past two Republican governors, Mitch Daniels and Mike Pence? Tom?
They're different times in different places. I mean, Governor Daniels came in at a time that the state had had 16 years and really had lost its way in a lot of respects with the Democrat leadership that had been there. He had a lot of low-hanging fruit and a lot of things to fix. And Governor Pence continued that, and at the same time had his own agenda that he carried through that. 4 years is a relatively short time, but then you had Eric Holcomb come in and I think continue some of the things that were started there, and at the same time say, I'm at least going to keep the state going and improve where I can, but understand I'm not just changing things to change things. I'm not out there just trying to grab headlines, but rather I'm just going to continue moving our state forward. And you've seen the wins, whether it be economic development, whether you be the real continuation of us having top flight infrastructure. All those things are things that I think each of them did differently. And I think it's really difficult to say one was better or one was. I think each of them was a great person for the time that they were there.
Kip, obviously a Republican focused question, but I want to get your thoughts on this as well.
I think stylistically, Eric Holcomb was my favorite of the three. I think he really downplayed partisan politics. I think he tried to downplay the Trump era. I think if you look at Republican governors across the country, he survived the Trump era, not being really stylistically a Trumper, not in your face, not trying to be discourteous. He's a very nice guy, and his public persona was the same as his private persona. He was a nice person who tried to do the best thing in his view for the state of Indiana. I think Mike Pence is also a nice guy, but much more ideologically driven than this governor. And I disagree completely with how Mitch Daniels is characterized by my friend Tom John.
Specifically where?
I think he was a divisive guy. I think that the state was in better shape the day he took over than the day he left. And I think if you look at statistics, it's pretty clear that we have gone downhill in the era of three Republican governors, and Mitch Daniels started that.
Quickly, let's turn to Mike Braun. What defines his 6 years in Washington to you? And we'll start with you on this one, Kip.
Well, look, I think on the positive side, I think, as a Democrat looking at Mike Braun, I think he did try to reach across the aisle on some issues that people were surprised he did when it was the environment. He talked about his work with Bernie Sanders on an issue, and he said he was pro-labor. He certainly reached out to labor and tried to work with them in places where he could. So from that standpoint, I think, I thought it was good. I obviously didn't like him kowtowing to Donald Trump. I don't like that he didn't vote for him to be impeached. I think the corrosive effect of Donald Trump on our country is going to be a long-term stain on everybody who's supporting.
I'm running out of time. Tom, I want to get you in here too. Quickly, 15 seconds.
Over 36 bills that had practical effect on people's lives and reaching across the aisle. You can't ask for much better in a one-term senator to go out there, get things done, and now come back to help our state.
Okay. Well, fair enough. We'll leave it there. Happy holidays to you both. Good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. Yep. We will be right back. All right, that's it for us for now. Thank you for joining us for All Indiana Politics this week. We'll be back here, of course, next Sunday morning, as always, at 9:30. And be sure to check out the All Indiana Politics podcast online at wishtv.com. Have a great rest of your weekend.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network. Watch All Indiana Politics live Sunday mornings at 9:30 on Wish TV and at wishtv.com. Subscribe to this podcast and listen weekly here on the All Indiana Podcast Network. And be sure to discover even more great podcasts at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.